for 6 months trying to catch up. And it's all because we have learned that we can waste money, and we do so very readily. I think one of the things we waste most of in our lives is time. I wonder how much time we've wasted in our lifetimes when we could have been doing something, but we chose simply to do nothing. Now, some people say, well, everybody's got to relax and everybody needs to enjoy. But you know, I believe we Americans have learned to relax and enjoy beyond that which is necessary to sustain human life. We've become lazy on many occasions. And when you become lazy, you become a waster of the time that God has given you. What about our talents? You know, there's so many people who are talented in our world, but they never use them. If you're talented tonight and you're a Christian, you ought to use that talent for the glory of God. Now, I'm not talking about spiritual gifts. I'm talking about talents. What about things that God has allowed us to develop in our lifetimes? And I believe that as Christians, He's allowed us to do that so that we can glorify the Lord. But we oftentimes hide our candles under a bushel. We either let fear or the intimidation that somebody might be a little better at what we're going to do, or we just lack the confidence to get up and do. I think that we need to keep in mind, if we do things for the glory of Christ, it can't be measured by the standards of the world. I think I've told you this story before. I'm going to tell it again. When Lynn and I were young Christians, and I mean we were very young Christians, there was a man in our church at Fairview. Pam, you'll remember him very well. Is he gone, Lynn? Is he dead? Is he passed? James. Okay, I can call his name is James. I'll tell you who the last name. You'd remember him. He was a different kind of man. Not an outgoing type of fella. One that you would, if you think about somebody in school that the boys always picked on, he would be the picture in the dictionary. But he was faithful to God at Fairview Baptist Church. He was there every time the services convened. James came, and he and Lynn had worked together at Hardee's, I believe. James came to us and said, I'm going to ask Brother J.W. Brown, who was our song director at that time, if I can sing a special. And when James said that, I cringed. Because, you see, he sat close to Lynn and I during the services, and I'd heard him sing. And I'll just be quite honest with you, he couldn't. Now, I know the Lord tells us to make a joyful noise unto the Lord, all ye lands. His noise was not joyful. It hurt you to hear him sing. But he asked J.W. if he could sing a special. And J.W. said, yeah, if you feel the Lord's leading you to sing, you get up and sing. Now, he didn't ask him to sing on a Sunday night. He let him sing on a Sunday morning. House was full at Fairview during that time on Sunday morning. Pam, boy, don't you remember them good old days when we'd roll the side curtains back? We had overflow rooms at the old Fairview Baptist Church. We'd roll those curtain doors, I guess is what you call them. You'd push them things back. It'd be full. Sanctuary would be full. Everybody'd be there. James got up and he started singing. Oh, my Lord. It was horrible. It was horrible. I don't know what key, and Linda Ligon was probably playing. I don't know what key Linda was playing in, but James was singing in the key of Z. Now, for those of you who are non-musicians, they ain't no key of Z, but he found it. And every verse was worse than the first. There was a deacon sitting in front of Lynn and I. And almost as Quickly as James started singing, that deacon started snickering. And before it was over, he was full out hee-haw laughing. Thought he was going to fall out of the pew and hit the floor. James finished his song, and the church applauded him, and J.W. thanked him. And I thanked him. I encouraged him. He asked us how he did. We lied. Said he did great when he didn't. But there's no doubt in my heart he did it for the Lord. And you know, when he did it for the Lord, it didn't matter if he was on key or if he was out of key. Didn't matter that he couldn't keep time with the piano, which he couldn't. Didn't matter if he stumbled over the words. He was singing from his heart for Jesus Christ. You know who the fool was that day? That ignorant deacon who laughed at that man for serving God in that capacity. Don't waste your talent. Even if your talent is not great. Danny sang for us last week, and I didn't want to follow him. I wasn't going to get up and sing after he did. Danny, you did a great job. You got a great voice. God's blessed you in a great way. But you know what? I'm foolish for thinking that way. If the Lord had laid on my heart to have sang a song, I should have gone up to our editor and sang a song right when Danny got finished. Because you see, it doesn't matter if you compare us. It doesn't even matter what you think. It's what God thinks that makes the difference. We're wasters. And oftentimes our talent is one of the things that we waste the most. There's a man named Ben Herbster. You don't know him. I don't know him personally. I've read a lot of quotes. He was a Christian writer in the turn of the 20th century. Ben Herbster said this: "The greatest waste in the world is the difference between what we are and what we could be." I think he's right. The greatest waste in the world is the difference between what we are and what we could be. Beloved, waste is a tragic thing. Jeremiah was a prophet of the Lord. He prophesied to the land of Judah. Judah had wasted the blessings of God, and God said it very clearly: "You have played the harlot with false gods." So tragic was the waste that God judged them with a very swift and a very severe judgment. I believe as we read through the Old Testament, and as we now look and understand the nation of Israel, I don't believe that I would be exaggerating anything tonight when I say that Israel has wasted the greatest opportunity of any nation ever known to mankind. Built by God, blessed by God, brought by God, and betrayed by his people. As God spoke to the children of Israel of the waste that was so great, it was very obvious that his heart was broken. I believe that God's heart is probably broken again. Because after Israel, I believe that America is the second great waste in the historical records of God's blessing. There's never been a nation whom the Lord has blessed more after the nation of Israel than He has the Americas. Our history almost reads like a biblical theologue manual. Over and over again, against insurmountable odds, God blessed America that we overcame every enemy. Now, does that mean that we've done everything right in the history of our country? Absolutely not. Because our nation is made of human beings like you and like myself. And because of that, we make mistakes. There have been many mistakes that have been made in the nation of the United States. But beloved, even with the mistakes that have been made, God's blessings have always been evident in our nation. And with His blessings, we, much like Israel, have turned our backs and no doubt have broken the heart of our God. I want us to look at the text I've read tonight. I've titled my message, How Tragic is Our Waste. And I want us to see in three areas where Israel wasted what God intended for them to have, and in turn, apply it to our own nation. I believe there's great similarities. First thing we see is that Israel had wasted her relationship with the Lord. Now, our world is a world of wasted relationships. I don't believe that we would all have any disagreement tonight when I say that we're living in a world that is truly divided in every area that we can imagine. We're divided economically. Have you ever been to a third world country? James, you've been to a third world country. The difference is staggering. Jimmy, you've probably seen the impoverished men and women of third world countries in your 11 and a half years in the Navy. Wayne, did you serve in foreign lands? Most of yours was here in the United. You are a blessed man. I've been on mission trips to third world countries. I've seen poverty, abject poverty. Friends, I want you to know that the poorest man or woman in America is a queen or a king compared to many of the third world countries in our world tonight. We're divided economically. We're certainly divided politically. Can you imagine living in Russia? I can't. Living in a place where you can only do what they allow you to do, when they allow you to do it, and how they allow you to do it. Can you imagine living in a nation where you live, where someone else chooses for you to live, and you live in the house that they choose for you to live in? Can you imagine being in a nation where you work at the occupation that someone else has chosen for you, and regardless of how bad you hate it, that's your job? That's the way a communist country is run. Can you imagine being a citizen of the nation of China, where children are taken away from their parents and placed in workhouses? Now, when I say taken from their parents, I don't mean that during the daytime they pick them up in a school bus that's air conditioned, they feed them a peanut butter sandwich and give them a carton of milk, and they take them to a factory and make them work. No, they literally take them away from their parents. They live in a barracks throughout their formative years when they should be playing and running. Last night we celebrated my dad's 90th birthday, and my grandson came down and sat at the end of the table. He wanted to sit on Pawpaw's lap, which is me. And the reason he came is because he saw an Indian out the window, and he wanted me and him to go out and hunt Indians after we had eaten. But Mama said that we can't hunt Indians anymore. So we didn't get to go out and do that. But anyway, can you imagine? They come and they take your children away from you. And they place them in barracks. And they dress them all in the same clothes. And they give them all the same haircuts. They feed them the most minuscule of foods. And they work them